Well, welcome back to my show, Tiki Tim's Trop Rock Tributes. I'll be the first to apologize. We're having a few technical nuances today that we haven't had, but I do know that in my own town, there was a big storm that came through last night, and the center of our town lost power. And so I'm thinking that's having something to do with our Wi-Fi line. So without further ado, we have Mr. Bill Cockrell here with us today, and I'm really excited about this interview, not only because Bill is an accomplished guitarist and songwriter on many different disciplines, but he's also a fellow drummer, and I love that nothing more than anything to sit here and talk with another drummer in the trop rock genre. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing well. I was gonna say maybe the water from behind you is got into your equipment or something, but
or, or it got into my head. One of the
yeah.
two is entirely possible. I will say we haven't had trouble going live to Facebook before, and it's telling me right now it's preparing. So it may magically just pop up during the interview that we're live, and I'm sorry if it does, but we will get this out to all our fans. Of course, we push this show on to all the trop rock uh, organizations around New England, Tampa Bay, Key West. We're friends with all of them, and they've been very kind and very considerate to allow me to post the show on their Facebook sites, which just makes sense because it's all trop rock oriented. And so we're going to go that route this week. So, Bill, before I get into my questions, and I have a lot of them, I just I wanted to read a couple of testimonials about you that I discovered. Here's one. Dog's Life, which was, I think, your latest album,
hmm
proves that what Bill Cockrell's first CD taught us is true. Bill is a powerhouse player in the trop rock genre. His original songs and musical ability are nothing short of amazing. That's Don Winfield, Ashore Radio. Here's another one. When Aquaholic came out, that CD found itself in my car player as I drove into Key West and back for work each day. And when I got home, popped it out and played it on the home player. Now, Dog's Life has captured the exact same good feel of the sun, water, beach, and life that Aquaholic did. And that CD finds itself in the same rotation. That's from Mark Hollander, Vice President of Coconut Castaways and Meet Me in the Keys co-organizer. I'll give you one more. Bill Cockrell follows up last year's terrific trop rock debut with more catchy, well-written, produced, sun-drenched originals on Dog's Life, and that's Dennis Key of Island Time Radio Show. And let's see, we enjoyed Bill's first CD and eagerly awaited the new Dog's Life CD, and it did not disappoint. So grab yours and support this up-and-coming trop rock artist. That's Sam and Gina Denzler of Songwriters Island Radio. Those aren't, testimonials and comments to, just kind of poo-poo. Those are pretty major comments about you as a musician, you as a drummer, you as a guitarist and songwriter. And
Well,
so
I
what?
think after that I ran out of money, so that's probably all the comments there are about.
You have some of the best testimonials I've ever seen. So,
Awesome,
that's
awesome.
fantastic. Listen, tell me about your early musical family, because you made reference in some of your biographical materials that you had parents or family members that were musically oriented. Tell me about that.
I do. My grandfather on my mom's side was very musical. Actually have a banjo that he handmade that hangs up in my other studio. So he never really did much with it, but he was always musical. My mom was very musical. She came up performing in her church and performed with a group, kind of like a Andrew Sisters kind of thing, three female, harmony type thing. So she was also an accordion player. She played the accordion way before Weird Al. And then my on my dad's side, I won't say he's musical necessarily, but he had a lot of exposure to the music industry. Actually. my dad and my mom met kind of through that. My dad was you know, I think at the time, you know, the kind of those record jobber types of things, and my mom worked in radio station, DJing, and he would come into the station and bring his records and stuff for, you know, trying to get them played, and that's how they met. So yeah, that's kind of my musical connection with my family.
That's cool. That's a great story. Let me ask you, why did you choose the drums at age 10?
Well, I would say I think I got a late start. I mean, a lot of my friends that I grew up with were already kind of in the band, usually, you know, fifth grade, you know, definitely by sixth grade in middle school, you're kind of, you know, you're either gonna go for it or not go for it. And I think it was seventh grade. I kind of got a year late start, and a really good friend of mine was playing drums. And my mom used to say, you know, I would run around the house always banging on something, you know, doing this, or, you know, being on walls or the couch or something like that. So it was, yeah, that was the instrument that spoke to me early on. And, you know, I played them for years. I wish, I know you'll get to it in a little bit, you know, my guitar and performance, but, you know, I wish I got to play more of them. I don't get to play as much anymore as I did, you know, early on.
Well, early on, you played a lot of different styles, you know, and that's it's not uncommon for a drummer to pursue multiple styles, but it's not easy either. It's a difficult thing to play jazz, to play Dixieland, to play big band, to play reggae, you know, all proficiently. How were you able to do that?
Well, yeah, I studied music. You know, I loved music so much. I actually chose that as a major in college. So I studied not music performance, but music management. And that was really set up as a dual major in music and then in business. And I had really, you know, had my sights set on going into the recording industry as a sound engineer. That was really where I was headed. And at the time, there was only two schools that really had a good sound engineering program back, which had been in 1980. And that was University of Miami and UCLA in California, which were the ones that I was aware of at the time. Um, and I really, neither of those locations interested me in going to school. So in another school in Florida had this music management degree, and they were just starting out with it. So I kind of went that lines, but I still had all the same, you know, performance requirements, you know, in my instrument of percussion. But I had to be, with that major, I had to study all of the instruments and have some basic proficiency in all of them. So, you know, brass, woodwinds, and strings. You know, I played cello and violin for a semester, and I played woodwinds for a semester, and it was crash course learn. It was like, here's your instrument, and here's your book, and, you know, next week we come back and be ready to play something on this. You know, I didn't have the luxury of a lot of time, you know, for my younger years to learn and become super proficient on those instruments. But, you know, some of them have continued to stay with me. You know, I still play a lot of keyboard. Flute was one thing. You know, a lot of music and rock music I was listening to, you know, at the time, you know, flute was always one of those, and saxophone. Instrument that crossed over from, you know, an orchestral band mode into kind of a rock mode, and I just kind of carried those around with me, and some of those, you know, show up on my CDs. That's especially my first CD.
Well, it's you know, being able to play multiple instruments is not an easy thing, and obviously the crossover. There's a lot of great drummers who have become guitarists because of it's such a rhythmically oriented instrument. Who inspired you early on as a drummer?
Well, wow. Um, I was definitely into the classic arena rock, probably in the late '70s and '80s. You know, Phil Ahart, you know, from Kansas. I was really into Kansas. Um, yeah, of course, you know, Neil Peart from Rush. Those were kind of the huge, bigger than life drummers that were kind of out there. Um, but you know, Steve Smith, you know, was a, you know, a jazz background drummer, and, you know, as
He's
cheesy as it sounds, you know, I was a Journey fan during that time. You know, they've rode high and dropped low, you know, depending on what period of era you were in with them. But I had a chance to meet him.
You did. When did you
Yeah.
meet Steve? I love Steve Smith. What a great
Yeah, I
jazz
mean,
drummer.
I really got into his music after Journey, you know, the Vital Information stuff. I mean, there's really some great stuff out there. But I met him. I went to a drum clinic. It was kind of a local music store, and that store I was, for whatever reason I was in. It was in Orlando, and I would always run into musicians. Greg Bissonette would be in there. I mean, he'd just be in the back room, you know, playing some drums. You need to walk by and you go, well, there's a Greg Bissonette right there. But
That's awesome.
yeah, so, you know,
Another great drummer.
another great drummer, definitely. So yeah, I guess those were some of my influences, you know, around that time. I guess I just, because of my change in direction and instrumentation that I focus on now, I pay more attention really as a songwriter, you know, more the acoustic singer songwriter type groups and musicians that are out there, and less so much on the drummers, since that's kind of not my focus anymore. But
Well, good segue. I had the privilege, the honor to meet Stuart Copeland of the Police a few
awesome.
times at a private school where he had a daughter, and I was teaching there, and whatever. We met and talked and this and that. And he told me one thing. He was giving a lesson to a kid. He said, the kid was a drummer, and the kid asked, "What should I do? What should I do next?" He's like,
Practice.
Get on the guitar.
Wow.
Get off the drums and get onto a
Stuart
mic."
has such a unique style. I mean, a lot of those drummers we've mentioned have, but, you know, Stuart is one of those too. I mean, gosh, what a, you know, you definitely can catch his drumming when he's playing if you don't know who it is.
Well, what percentage today, like, is drums versus guitar gigs and band practice? Is it?
You know, I'm trying to think of my last drum gig, and it's probably been, well, it's definitely pre-COVID. I don't know if you can count this year or not, but yeah,
No.
it was probably end of last year. And yeah, I really jump on them, you know, more in the, you know, more the modem type things or whatever, where it's you know, here's the thing, there's just kind of this group thrown together, and there's an opportunity to play. I always, if I'm going to Meeting of the Minds or that type of thing, I carry some percussion with me and wind up, you know, playing. I'll take that back. You know, I actually did. I guess the last gig we did was the cruise I did with Donnie Brewer, and which would end in March. And we literally, as soon as I was not sure we were going to make it back, you know, in one piece, but we made it back. And then I think the week after that, everything shut down. So, you know, all this is kind of going on. You're on a cruise ship. You're like, oh boy. But Donnie brings me along to, because I play multiple instruments, and I can play the guitar on the stuff that needs a second guitar, and then I can play percussion and congas and that kind of thing on the songs that really need that kind of stuff on it.
Oh man, you're inspiring me to pick up a guitar. I've tried, but my fingers are too fat. So, hey, tell me about Walt Disney. You've done a lot of gigs with Walt Disney down in Florida. Tell me a little bit about those experiences. How that went. You know.
Well, I have done, so my main job, that was my day job, really, Walt Disney World, and my job with them was not so much in the music realm, although I had, you know, periods of time that I interfaced a lot with musical things that were going on there. But I was operations manager with them up until last week. So I was part of the 28,000 that is no longer part of that company.
Sorry, I even.
But you know, I've had a long career with them. I've been with them 38 years, and I'm sure, you know, sometimes things come along, and you know, I really was doing two full-time careers. I had my job with Disney, and I was playing 5-6 nights a week on top of that, and you know, talk about running on fumes a lot of the time. You know, and I always knew at some point I would probably retire. Not yet, but you know, sometimes it's the cards are dealt to you, and I would focus more, you know, as a full-time musician. So I look at that as, you know, that's an opportunity for me to, you know, continue to pursue that. I already was a full-time musician, but now, you know, I really will be a full-time musician as soon as the gigs come back.
They will come back. You don't have to make excuses, man. We all know how it is to balance a day job and being a full-time musician, because a lot of us do it. And
Yep.
my hat to you on losing that Walt Disney gig. That sucks, but sometimes it's a half glass full thing. So
Yep.
tell me, you know, your latest CD about the dog's life. Do you own a dog, first of all? You a dog guy?
I am a dog guy, and I don't know if you were able to see the cover of that or not, but the cover of that CD has my dog Patches on it, who's a Dalmatian. So I'm a huge Dalmatian fan. We had two for many years. Patches, unfortunately, about year and a half or so after that cover and that CD came out, she was about 14, and we had to put her down. So I am dogless right now, but I'm actually working with a Dalmatian rescue operation that's here in Florida. And they get Dalmatians literally from all over the world that come in and look to rehome them. So I'm kind of working my way up to you know, hopefully getting another Dalmatian for the family.
What's that? That's cool. You do that. What's the name of do you know the name of that organization?
It's a Dalmatian rescue. I don't know if it's of South Florida or Miami or something. They're in Miami, but I mean, I've talked with them for a couple of years. You know, I've talked about adopting again, and I know at one point, you know, because I kind of check in and, you know, who's coming in, what's coming in, and they've got one from Korea, I think, right now that's up for adoption. They've got 2 or 3 coming from Mexico that they're trying to get back into the States. I know they had some that came from Egypt, I think last year sometime. So, I mean, they literally have had the resources and to get them from wherever they're at back here.
It's also, you know, getting a rescue dog is a beautiful thing to do in and of itself. And I know a lot of people that have gotten rescue dogs and just instantly fall in love with their pets. So that's a great thing you're doing, and that's a great organization.
Well, if you look for, I mean, any breed you want, and my last 2 Dalmatians, they were both rescues. So, I mean, any breed you want, you know, you don't have to go to those breeders and puppy mills to get a great dog. You know, sometimes even though the Heinz 57 dogs are the best dogs as well. But if you're stuck on a breed, I mean, there's rescue organizations for every breed that's out there. So just you do your homework and look around, you should be able to find them.
That's awesome. So, I mean, on the Dog Life's album, I mean, you had one album previous to Dog's Life.
Yeah, my first one was Aquaholic. It was my first CD, and then Dog's Life. And then after that, I've kind of been just kind of on the release singles kind of thing, you know. I think people are buying less and less albums, and really just kind of hear the song they want to do and are downloading it. So that's kind of where I've been since that.
Okay. Well, tell me some of the musicians you're using on Dog's Life. I mean, was it members of the band, or did you bring in studio guys? Who's your drummer? That sort of thing.
Well, I have used some guys on. I used less guys on Dog's Life. Really, Aquaholic was kind of my you know, my all out, pull all the stops out and do everything. And you know, I have a lot more. I play all the drums on those tracks. I have a trombone player that I knew from my college years that plays. John Patty plays all the pan parts on there. Jimmy Pappas has a cameo with harmonica on there. I hope I'm not missing anybody that else is on there, but I play most of the instruments. So if you hear the you know, the orchestra bells, the steel, there's one song I play steel pans on, which I crash course learned to do that. But there's some mallets on there, some keys on there. I did have a bass player that played all the bass parts, but other than that, that one's pretty much all me other than the cameos. It was an enormous undertaking of
That's
studio.
incredible, man, that you do all that.
Enormous, because you can't have everybody just come in and do their parts. It's like, okay, I'm going to do all these parts today, and then next week I'm going to do all these parts. All the backup vocals are 100% all live. They're not harmonizers.
Well, you mentioned that back in college you were studying with a focus on music production. I mean, did that help you at all? Did you produce this album?
I actually, I think a lot of people kind of do this. I work on my arrangements at home, and get a strong structure. And usually I'm already performing the song out live. And then I'll take that into, I did use a studio here in Florida, and went up just because I hadn't gone through that full production before. I mean, I can do my own stuff at home, but I've learned a lot from going through that. But I used a studio up in Deltona, and just to make sure it was a great product coming out. And great studio, full. Everything I needed was there, and so I did that. But it was a lot of time. I would go to the studio one day a week, and it was probably a good 6 months, of going in, one day a week and just crash coursing and doing all that. Now, when I went to Dog's Life, there's a lot less. I allowed more of my tracks that were previously done. I mean, there's still live bass and live drums on it, but there's more. I did less of the, hey, I'm going to play this live, and I did less of that. So when I was hauling marimbas and vibraphones and orchestra bells in the studio on Aquaholic, I didn't do that on Dog's Life. I took the easier route. I just found out people didn't notice and they didn't pay attention to it. I'm like, why am I doing all this and this time and effort, and nobody really knew the difference.
Well, I mean, that's a great answer. And I just find talking to guests every week that's more and more the way things are going. And, maybe I should pick up a guitar sooner than later, because MIDI is changing the landscape of music. Particularly on drums. And I will say, not just on drums, but also on bass. And also on keyboard. Guitar is a tough one to replicate in a MIDI environment. But listen, when you tour with Aquaholics, some of you guys I read actually played with the Choral Reefers. What's that all about?
Well, and you're probably talking about John, who plays the pianos, and myself. I mean, the Coral Reefers are a big part of Modem, big part of Music on the Bay, and sometimes there's opportunities to play with them. So Doyle frequently will sit in on stage and play with bands, especially at Music on the Bay. I've played with him, gosh, probably 5 times or so, up there. Nadira will frequently come up and sit in with bands. So, through these large events, those opportunities present themselves, and it's great. It's a great experience.
Well, a lot of artists, today have to find new ways to turn a buck to make a living. And I read that you had a partnership with Siesta Key Rum.
Yes.
So my question is, are they really the best? And why that partnership? Why did you go that route?
Well, that partnership was born out of a song. It was born out of a song that came from an event, a real life event. So I was playing a house concert at the Sandbox, which is no longer, but it was an old house concert venue here in Florida. At that show, you may know Heather Settlemyer, who has she has her own concert or house concert venue as well here in Florida. But she was at that show, and of course, when you're doing these shows, people love to bring drinks up for the musician on the stage. Well, all of a sudden, these rum shots started coming up, And some of it was just regular rum, but then I got this one shot and it was like, wow, what is this stuff? And she noticed that I took a big interest in it, and she obviously kept bringing it to me, and I had way more than I probably needed, and eventually just needed to stop playing. But she gave me a bottle, a full bottle of that at the end of the show, and took it home. I'm like, wow, what a great experience that was. And that song, Siesta Key Rum, or Toasted Coconut Rum, which I have, it's actually a single, it's not on one of the first two CDs, is literally, that's kind of how the afternoon went. It's a true life story. But fast forward, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 months later, I was playing one of the monthly flockings for the Tampa Bay Parrot Head Club. And Ken and Heather were part of that club. And they were there, and I said, hey, how long are you staying tonight? Because I got a surprise for you. And I said, oh, yeah, we're going to stay. So I got to a point later in the evening, I said, I'm going to play this brand new song. And it was, Toasted Coconut Rum. And her husband, Ken, was, had his video recorder out, and he was, videoing the song of me performing the song. Well, he sent it, unbeknownst to me. They had already discovered the distillery, and Troy, who owns the distillery, and they sent him the video of that song. And literally, like the next day, Troy's hunting me down, calling me, going, "Hey, I want to use this song. What can we do?" I'm like, "Do you want to sponsor me, and let's put something together?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So they've been a sponsor of mine, and maybe 3-4 years or so now. So I get lots of rum from them. We've done some marketing things together with each other. And probably the last thing we did was, during this COVID time, we're all having to be creative on how we do our music. And a lot of musicians are doing the live stream thing. So, kind of came out and jumped on the party with that thing. But we partnered up with them, and, they sponsored one of our shows, and, mirror streamed it onto their site. So it was really an opportunity to kind of reach a bunch of new fans that may not necessarily know who I am, but are big fans of the rum, that go into this distillery and buy that. So it was a neat kind of thing.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you mentioned live and Facebook, and we weren't able to go live today, but there's a lot of artists out there to say, "Hey, Tim, nice try. Catch me in a few months, and we'll try it again." But you were very kind and generous to allow this interview to go on, and I promise you it will be well distributed to the Tampa Bay and the other Trop Rock clubs out there who have been picking it up. But I'm not done yet. Please describe for me, the best way I can ask it, describe for me your drumming style, your guitar style, your songwriting style, or maybe this just all comes down as one approach, and your personal style to playing instruments, to songwriting. What defines you?
I have such a eclectic mix of different influences, and gosh, it would be hard to me to say I'm one thing, because I don't think I am. I won't say I'm technically proficient at it, especially now that I don't get to play as frequently. But from influences of different styles. So when I was in school growing up, obviously, you're playing in the marching bands. But we had a fantastic jazz band in high school, and we were playing the straight ahead jazz stuff, but we were also playing the Chuck Mangione, the Chicago tunes, those kinds of things that really crossed over. I'm a huge Chicago fan, early Chicago fan. And, when I was, every drummer starting out goes into their bedroom, puts on their headphones, cranks up their favorite records and puts them on, put them on to start learning to play like those drummers. I was playing, my go-tos were Rush for Neil Peart in Chicago. Were probably the ones that I spent the most time. And to me, those were challenging pieces, on both ends, from a rock front and from a jazz rock kind of thing, to learn. But then, playing that in school and then in college, I'm playing Dixieland and jazz and those groups, as well as, concert band and other bands. And I think all of those things work into my music. If you listen to my CDs, I mean, there's everything from rock to Dixieland to, I won't say country. I try to lean kind of country because there's a lot of country artists that have crossed over into the trop rock world. So I kind of got, sometimes I'll go, maybe I should do something that's more country or whatever. But I'm all over the place. Now I will say my songwriting style is not those things, which is probably Jekyll and Hyde, of me, because I think my drumming is definitely influenced from a different place that my guitar and songwriting is. I'm definitely influenced from the singer-songwriter, from my songwriting and guitar playing. I loved, in the vocal harmony groups, America, Loggins Messina, those even John Denver, those kinds of things, the very rich vocal harmonies. And you'll hear that, I think, in my CDs, I make well use of harmonies in the vocals, where it makes sense.
You definitely do. And you mentioned John Denver, who I consider personally one of the best, if not the best, songwriters ever in American music.
I had a chance to meet him right before he died, probably 6 months before he died. And I was working at Disney. And at the time I managed the miniature golf courses we had 2 of them. And he had been across the street, and he was doing a show later that night, a private convention, some event or convention had hired him to do a show. And he came over and played golf. And I got to spend probably about 2 hours with him, playing the golf course, just chit chatting. And I just had seen, he's got a DVD out that is like the wildlife concert show or something, something of that nature, where he was raising money for that. And just one of my favorite shows to watch. It's all his songs and songwriting, but he's taken all those songs and really made them current day. I mean, they're timeless in their own right, but they just had a new freshness and current time about them and that performance. But yeah, I mean, there's too many great songwriters out there to list. But obviously, I think I hate to do the fallback that everybody goes, Jimmy Buffett, but living and growing, I was born and raised in Florida, and that music exists as part of this culture. And I began scuba diving, and that was kind of how I was introduced to it. So I didn't listen to it early on, and I was definitely, I knew the Margaritaville songs that were out there, but until I really started diving on it as catalog, I was in college. It's like that the perfect match of those two things, and just through the outdoors and the water. I'm a very outdoorsy, water boating, diving, beach type person. So those all it just reinforces all of that.
Well, it's cool that you mentioned John Denver, you mentioned all of that, particularly scuba diving, because on the tail end of my college adventures, I too chose scuba diving and I actually took a course in scuba diving at a local dive shop and had to do all the trainings and all that.
Right.
So we share that similarity. Next time I'm in Florida, we should hang out, as I think we get all
I was actually a dive instructor for years. I taught at Disney as kind of a side thing from what I was doing. But I was early on in my early mid 80s. I was a search and recovery diver for Walt Disney World. So if people lost something in the water, we would go searching for it. Things needed repairing underwater, we would go do that. And unfortunately, if somebody for whatever reason drowned or whatever, we would be on call to go look for them.
All right. So I have to ask, any shark adventures?
Uh, I don't have any like near miss shark adventures. I've swam with sharks.
You swam with sharks. Tell me about that.
Well, I've been on a couple of shark dives out. I think I'm trying to think where we were. I can't remember if it was in the Bahamas or somewhere off the coast. I think we were in the Bahamas, where we kind of chummed up the water a little bit and drew the sharks in, and kind of went through that. But I also dove, because I was a diver at Walt Disney World. I dove in the living seas, which we had sharks in there. And at the time, I'm trying to remember what was in there. I know we had a 10-foot brown shark. Definitely a couple of blacktip reefs and of course nurse sharks, which are harmless. But so yeah, I don't necessarily give them a second thought when they're around me. If you treat them with respect, they're going to leave you alone.
So true. So tell me what's next. I mean, COVID has put quite a stop to a lot of our things, but you say you're writing a lot of songs. What do you envision for 2021?
Well, hopefully, we're going to get this entertainment thing rolling again. I know here in Florida, every state has, not to get political on one side or the other, but every state kind of has a different setup right now, what they're allowing. I know here in Florida, where the governor's released all the restaurant restrictions. I haven't seen them come back full tilt yet. I think they're still being cautious, self-disciplining themselves to be cautious before they go full throttle. So I've got a couple things of gigs that I had before that have popped up, have started up again. But one thing we've been doing with the band, I do probably 95% of what I do is solo work, but and then when the band gigs come up. But just last week we had there's a theater over in Winter Haven that has they do kind of tribute shows, but they used to do them inside the theater kind of in the off season, and because indoor gatherings are still not ready to go yet. There's a spring training baseball field that's right next door to it. I'm trying to remember who the team was that used to spring train there, but they've set up a stage in the outfield, and you can socially distance. It's outdoors. They bring PA, and they're bringing in the same thing they were doing inside, but just more of an outdoor thing. But tribute acts, and I've never wanted to be a tribute act or had an interest necessarily being a tribute act, but I was asked to do, a Jimmy Buffett tribute, which we did one last year, and we've done 2 of them so far in the past couple of months through them. But we're actually going to start doing, try to put together some other tributes. So we've got one next month, same place, same location. We're going to do a Kenny Chesney / Zach Brown tribute, and then we're going to put together another one. I don't know if we're going to put together a Bob Marley tribute, or I've thought of doing a one-hit wonder tribute kind of thing, but I mean, the worst thing for a band is not to play, not to have some consistent gigs playing. So as much as we can get the band going and get everybody, dust off all the cobwebs and get everybody playing again, the better.
Yeah, so true. So let me ask you, final question. You've been a great guest, and if given us a lot of time here. And again, I apologize for the high tide that's going on here today. What advice do you have for young songwriters, those coming right out of music school, those didn't even go to school, just throwing a guitar over their back and trying to make it in music?
Well, there's no single path to becoming successful in it. There are plenty of guitarists and musicians who can't read music, and they're more than successful than they probably could ever wished for. So I would say do what you love. um, you know by performing with other people is great, and every time you perform with a different musician, hopefully they're challenging you to learn something different, or go back and study something more, or give you fresh ideas that you can incorporate into doing what you do. And then take all those things and make it your own. um, do the music you love. Don't do something that somebody tells you that you need to do. um, it's if you do what you love, you'll never have to work at it a day in your life, so it's said. But um, practice definitely. But practice in what works for you. I mean, if you don't read music, then work at it your way to figure out and become proficient in your instrument. But learn from others. Get yourself playing with others, as many different people as you can. My son is a drummer, and he came up, and for years he was, I would try to get him to. I'm still not 100%. Try to get him to play with us, because he's a very good drummer, and he's completely different in his musical interests from mine. But I would tell him, it's like, if somebody's interested in you for a gig, take it. It doesn't matter if it's. I've played so many different gigs as a drummer, jazz gigs, rock gigs, whatever. They all make you better at it. And just because that might not be your favorite style of music, you're learning, you're growing, you're developing. So if there's a gig out there to have, take it and play it.
That's great advice. That's the best piece of advice I've heard on the show. I'm serious, Bill. I asked that question of every guest I have on. That by far was the best answer. Right at the end, get in a band and get playing with other musicians. It's just so important.
Yeah, don't sit around on the sidelines and wait for your perfect band to come along. And that's your genre of music. Get out there and play. Yeah. Just play. And playing with others forms you into. And I'll say, probably other than being proficient in an instrument, using your ears is the greatest thing that you need to know how to use. And I don't mean using them to hear the music. I mean using them to listen, to play off the other musicians. When everybody's playing quiet, you play quiet. When if there's somebody wants to change the tempo or drive the tempo, you need to be listening to follow that, so you play with all of the other musicians as a unit and not an individual. Team sport.
It is a team sport. Bill, you've been a great guest, and that was a great segue, because the second part of my show, which I tape separately because of Facebook muting policies, I get to play along to willing songwriters' original music. And
awesome.
The ones you've sent me a lot this morning, and I challenge myself not to practice them before I play them. I may listen to the ending just to kind of maybe try to get it, or the general feel, but the challenge is just to use my ears and play along to this music that by and large I haven't heard before. And so the ones I've chosen is Aquaholics, Sun After Rain, Flip Flop Girl, and Thunder Girl. And so after this
Thunder Island?
Thunder Island, sorry.
Thunder Island?
Flip Flop Girl, Thunder Island, which are off your latest CD, I believe. People want to check out Bill, they can go to BillCockrellMusic.com.
I think I'm trying to remember the list you just rattled off, but I think some of those are off of my first one. So Thunder Island is definitely, that's a cover I did of Jay Ferguson's song, which has a great story, if you want me to go into it or not. But I don't know if we have time.
No, go.
Okay.
We love stories.
So that is that's the only cover I have on my first CD, and I thought it didn't really come out as a trop rock song when it was released, although it kind of has those tendencies. I'm like, this needs to be a trop rock song. So is any songwriter will know, if you do a cover song of someone else's, you got to get their permission. You got to pay them royalties to do that. So when I started doing that song, I actually had most of the tracks done, and I'd sent it. John Patty plays the pans on it, and I was about to send it to him. I was like, well, I better lock this up to make sure. And sometimes you can't get the rights to the song. Somebody doesn't want people to do their song, you can't find it. So I started doing my research on it. Harry Fox Agency is the go-to, to pay for recording rights on things, but I couldn't find it. It wasn't listed. So then I had to go on my own and start doing my research. So, looking for who owned the rights for that song. Well, I went through several weeks of internet searches and sending notes out and not getting any responses. I found someone in Germany, for whatever reason, that seemed to own, sounded like owned that song, but and I never heard back from them. So I went on, I can't remember if it's an ASCAP or BMI song, but I actually went, I'm an ASCAP member, but I went on one of the two of those sites to see about that. And I was able to find another contact, and I didn't know who it was. So I wrote to him, sent it, and in about 2 days, I got an email back, and lo and behold, it was Jay Ferguson. And he was so gracious about me doing that song. And he's like, you know what? He goes, I'm not even going to charge you the standard rate for that. He goes, how many are you going to do? I'm like, nah, I'm probably a couple thousand. He goes, you sell 100,000, then call me. I'll take a collection up. So I was like, oh wow, this is great. And he was so nice about it. And then I started getting cocky. I was like, hey, since you're going to let me do your song, would you want to sing part of this? And he's like, he's doing movie soundtracks now. So I don't even know what beyond that, if he even performs anymore. He's like, well, he goes, I'm going to have to pass on that, but you go for it. So I sent him the completed package CD when I was done. I felt like I owed it to him because he was so gracious about it. And he could have thrown out in a pile and never given it another thought or saw the light of day, but he wrote me back a complete review of my CD. I mean, down to the cover art, to the other songs that were in, the production quality. And then, at the end, the last, sentence, he's like, of course, my favorite song is Thunder Island, and you nailed it. You did a great job with it. So that's just a neat thing to have somebody, somebody who's made that or written that song, appreciate what you've done with their baby.
That's amazing. Well, as a fellow drummer and musician, I wish you well this fall and into next year. People can check out what I can do with your songs, but the fact of the matter is you've already played the drums on them, so it should be pretty easy for me. But the challenge is that your songs are pretty intricate and complex rhythmically, and that's the challenge to me here. So hopefully I do a good job with it. Bill, you've been a great guest. Sorry about the technical snafu.
All right, we'll look for it up later.
Yeah, it'll be up later. It'll be up in probably 5 minutes, and we'll keep pushing it out. Thanks. Good luck.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.